Welcome to the Soul Archaeology podcast, a space for connection, resonance, witnessing, and learning. Together we'll harvest medicine from the spiral of life, sharing conversations with other embodied humans who have navigated their own initiations and found alignment with their true soul essence. With weekly astrology, energy updates, embodied conversation, and channeled teachings, this is a space for you to land and find resonance with the spiral of your own soul. Hello, and welcome back to Soul Archaeology. How was that new moon in Virgo for you? I feel like this time is all about disclosure and clarity, receiving insights and information, receiving downloads, peeling back the layers of illusion, dissolving the veil. You might be inundated with insight and awareness. You might be seeing things from a new perspective. You might be overwhelmed by the amount of data that's flooding in. You might be overwhelmed by the amount of change that's unfolding in the world, in your personal life. You may be feeling the pressure of Virgo season. Virgo is a mutable earth sign, so it is about change. It's about transformation. It's about mutability, flexibility. But in its shadow, it can feel quite rigid and restrictive. It can feel pressurized because there's this evolutionary pull or force to distill, clear, clarify, perfect things. And the reality is that nothing is perfect. And no matter how hard we try, no matter how hard we grip, things will always change. There's always this sense of malleability, and the more we try to grip to these pieces and parts that need or require change, the more we will suffer. And as we near eclipse season, I feel like the dial is sort of, the volume on this weather is increasing. There will be more disclosure, more revealing, more that comes to light, more that comes to the surface. You might feel even stuck or pigeonholed. You might feel the pressure building around choices that need to be made or changes that need to be made. You might even feel like everything is happening at once. And that is the weather. That is the season and really the build up to eclipse season. And like I said, the last new moon, really the last full moon, kind of opened the eclipse window. We start a month before the first eclipse. But especially this last new moon in Virgo, really felt like the opening and the gateway and the doorway to eclipse season, especially because we have Virgo season bookended by one new moon at 0 degrees Virgo, which we had last week. And we have another new moon in Virgo on the 21st of September, and this is an eclipse. It's a solar eclipse. And we're building towards this full moon, this full lunar eclipse in Pisces on September 7th. And then we're really in the eclipse window for those 2 weeks until we have our second eclipse on September 21st, which is a solar eclipse in Virgo. And so we are in it, the pressure is beginning to build. We're maybe having to really reckon with and sit with what's being disclosed, what's being revealed, what needs our attention and our awareness right now. The mind might be really active because Virgo wants to sort things out mentally. It wants to make sense. It's ruled by Mercury, so it likes to lead with logic and understanding and organization, but we may not be able to make sense of what's occurring right now. And this is where the South Node starts to apply its pressure. This Virgo season is a potent one because we have the South Node here, the South Node in Virgo. And if you have your natal south node in Virgo, I feel you, you're in your nodal return. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I highly recommend looking into my north and south node course called Inner Compass. If you feel like you've been swirling through or looping through the same patterns, if you feel like you're seeking more clarity around what is and isn't working in your life, your purpose, patterns that you've been repeating in life, in relationships, if you're unclear about what your subconscious programs are, I highly recommend this course. It's very clear, it's very precise, it's very practical. It's a way to really work with your lunar nodes, your north and south node, which I believe are key evolutionary pieces in your chart. And they tell us where you've been. They tell us about your past lives, your childhood, your lived experiences in this life. It tells us about your ancestry. So where your patterns actually come from. And then it tells you how to transform them, how to work with the opposite or your north node to balance and harmonize these key evolutionary placements. So I've seen people transform in really profound ways through this course. It's self-led, it's self-guided, so you can do it on your own time. You'll always have access to it. When I first started working with my lunar nodes, it was profound. I learned so much. I still utilize them. What's coming up for me right now is straight up South Node in Virgo, and I am working with it in real time to lean into my North Node in Pisces, and it's incredibly helpful. So my entire life changed after learning about my lunar nodes 8 years ago, and I began this work, I began my business, I began a whole new life in a new place with a completely new perspective. So you can still get this course for 10% off through August using the code NORTH, and I have it linked in my show notes. You can use the code NORTH for 10% off. I would love to hear how this course is landing for you. Many people have been working with it the last few months, and so it's super fun to kind of track it in real time. And if you are one of my South Node and Virgo people, then you are in your nodal return along with me, and you are quite literally white knuckling probably the change that really needs to unfold in your life. And so having the South Node in Virgo collectively means we are quite literally going through every layer of our life and looking at where we're gripping, where we are relying on this false sense of security, this false sense of control, where we're afraid to make a change, to take the leap, to launch ourselves into the unknown, into surrender, into trust, into deeper faith, into ease and peace. Because it's more familiar to stay in the old, to stay in what we've always known. And the South Node in Virgo is very sneaky. It relies a lot on logic. It wants to mentally understand, right? So it's important for us to look at where we are leading with our minds, where we're afraid of letting go of control, where we are trying to sort of manipulate or contort reality in order to stay in that familiar space. And believe me, I know the last few years, the last 5 years really, and more for a lot of us, have been riddled with change and transformation and fast, rapid change. And it can feel like whiplash. It can feel almost disorienting to be involved in that much change, to be held in so much unknown. I'm talking to so many people who are looking for a place to live. They're looking for their next spot to live. They're looking for what their career is going to look like in the next chapter. There's so many of us at this threshold point, and it can feel really overwhelming to not see what's on the other side. And the South Node in Virgo is revealing where we have patterns of subtly controlling or manipulating our reality, or where we are relying on this old identity, this sense of perfectionism, this sense of who we've always been, or where we're afraid to let go and show up authentically. This is the work of the South Node in Virgo. And so this Virgo season is confronting because the sun is meeting with the South Node. We also have, of course, this new moon. So the moon is still within range of the South Node as well. So there's a lot of emotion tied to this too. And I've said this before, but we have been deep in the heart work, looking at where we have these tricky, protective defense mechanisms around our heart, where we are afraid to surrender, where we are afraid to receive. And Venus has been moving through Cancer. She exits Cancer and enters Leo on the 25th of this week and immediately begins to trine Saturn and Neptune in Aries and oppose Pluto in Aquarius. So this is another confronting week. We have this not so gentle invitation to remain within our hearts, to remain connected to our hearts as we navigate this ego death, for lack of better words. Where are we leading from the mind and not allowing the heart to lead? Where are we afraid to take a risk? Where are we afraid to open? So often our patterns are self-created because of fear. And we get looped into these patterns and we hate them and we complain about them, or we have anger or frustration around them. But there's oftentimes a hook that we have access to. Only we have access to it. And this hook is usually held in our subconscious. It's usually held within our nervous system, our heart walls. And this is the space where we get to unhook ourselves from these patterns, where we get to say, I am no longer participating in this loop of rejection or abandonment. I am no longer participating in this shame spiral. And I think right now, these patterns in particular are being revealed to us, and they are confronting. And because Virgo can be quite blunt, it's always looking for truth. It's looking for the most efficient, direct route to that truth. It's looking for distillation, clarity. It can be direct, sometimes even harsh. It's precise. So we have this precision that we're working with, which is helpful and supportive, but also really confronting. So it's important through this time to, like I said in the last episode, I talked a lot about this, tend to what needs rooting, anchoring, support right now. Tend to the physical, tend to your nervous system. Return to simplicity, to the practices that really nourish you, that support you, that make you feel connected to your center, to your body. This can look like a meditation in the morning. This can look like a healthy, nourishing breakfast that you know really works for your body. This can look like a morning walk or cutting out caffeine. Each and every body is unique. So it's important that instead of outsourcing the wisdom of what your body needs, you instead turn inward and ask, what is actually nourishing and supportive for me right now, in this moment, in this time, knowing that things change, knowing that this practice or ritual or way of eating serves you right now. It might not in 3 months when we're in a different season, but right now it's really what you need. This time is about resourcing and returning to what nourishes, returning to what creates safety, stability, groundedness within your system. Because we have a little bit of a turbulent week. There's a lot of breakthrough opportunities, there's a lot of support, but there's also some confrontation again. Anytime Uranus is involved, we get surprises and breakthroughs and sudden insights that can be oftentimes destabilizing. And on the 24th, we begin the week with the Sun in Virgo squaring Uranus in Gemini. And as we know, Uranus was involved in this new moon as well. So or probably in a little bit of a hangover, with this new moon. Maybe you've had these sudden insights, these revelations and realizations. Maybe you're just sorting through them or integrating them or just feeling into it, taking a little break, resting, giving yourself some space to just be with what has unfolded. We're in a mutable season, which means we're shifting from one season to the next. It can feel a little bit like a liminal space because we're not in the heart of summer in the Northern Hemisphere, and we're not quite yet in fall. So we're in this in-between. People are going back to school. Travel is slowing down. We're tapering down from summer as we begin to approach fall or autumn. So this week there's a focus on mutability, change, non-attachment, flowing with the current without knowing where we'll end up, what will leave or what will stay. Like I said, Venus enters Leo on the 25th. It very quickly begins to trine Saturn and Neptune in Aries and oppose Pluto in Aquarius. And then on the 28th, we have Uranus and Gemini sextile Neptune in Aries. And this is going to be unfolding 5 different times over the next 2 years. So this is a lot of mutable energy. And Virgo is always looking to refine. But with these Uranian and Neptunian aspects, we're reminded that nothing is fixed. And over the next few years, we will be invited again and again to release rigid structures of thought, identity. We'll be asked to embrace mutability, fluidity, imagination, new systems of meaning and being. This week will reveal where we are rigid, where we are gripping, where we are afraid of surrender, the unknown, loss of control. We know the upcoming eclipse season is about release, non-attachment, reorientation. There are major changes that come during eclipse season. So what we need now in the weeks following, leading up to it, is a focus on nervous system support, resourcing, returning back to the basics, back to your practices, back to what nourishes you, what supports you, what you can control. This week is about refinement and discernment. This Neptunian and Uranian presence reminds us that we can't necessarily control the big picture. We can't control what's about to change. But what we can control is our own internal experience. We can condition our systems. We can train the nervous system for eclipse season, for resilience and flexibility. Once again, this comes back to resourcing, which is unique to each and every one of us. So what is a resource for you? I love doing this with clients. I work through a lot of resourcing. We begin all of my containers with a lot of resourcing to create safety within the system or to enhance existing safety within the system. So we begin the week with this Sun Uranus square. And Virgo seeks order, precision, clarity. Uranus in Gemini disrupts with new ideas, unexpected information, jolts, surprises. And this square can feel destabilizing. There might be a sudden change in plans, routines, communication, insights. And this is about practicing adaptability, building resilience within your system, to be able to respond to change without fear, without dropping into that survival, or even if you do drop into a survival space, what resources do you have to navigate out of it, to return back home? There's a bit of a paradox because I think many of us are seeking and wanting change, but that change requires that we meet our edges. It requires that we get uncomfortable. And when there's so much discomfort, so much unknown, so much out of our control externally, we can sort of double down on what we control can control internally. Like we're bracing for the change rather than emerging to receive it. So just notice that within your system. Are you bracing for something? Are you locking further down on what you've always done or what's always been comfortable? Or are you able to be open to receive this change while utilizing the resources that really work for you, and really support you? Because Uranus reminds us that disruption is often the catalyst for innovation, for change, for growth and expansion. So what is your relationship to change? This week might feel a little bit like a preview of eclipse season. There might be turbulence. What we thought was steady begins to shift, perhaps. And it really teaches us that flexibility will be required over the next month. And to add another layer to this week, we have Venus shifting into Leo. So she emerges from this more lunar depth of Cancer into this expansive, expressive, big, bold Leo. It's solar. Cancer's inward and nurturing. And Leo is bold. It's about self-expression, creativity, visibility. The themes we'll be exploring over the next month while Venus navigates the terrain of Leo is visibility and attunement in relationships, being seen, romance that feels playful and heart-led, creativity, joy, pleasure. So we're going to be moving perhaps, in our values and in our focus from this need for safety to this need for pleasure and joy, expansion, expression, passion. But Venus here is going to be doing deep relational work because she will begin to oppose Pluto almost immediately. And this is all about heart and the mind. This is all about you as the center of self within relationship to another or to the collective. This will reveal where your ego is running the show, where you're afraid to be expressed or be seen or be centered, or where you are relying too much on that. She'll begin to move away from Pluto over the next week, but her beginning start in Leo is going to be a little tumultuous, a little deep, a little penetrating, a little intense with this opposition to Pluto. She does have support from Saturn and Neptune and Aries, but they're both retrograde, so they're going to be bringing us a little bit deeper as well. So this might feel like it reveals cracks in your relational framework, in your values. It might be uncomfortable, especially with this South Node in Virgo, especially with the Uranus square. It could feel very confronting. There might be conversations that need to be had. There might be dramatic experiences or emotional surges midweek. And that is sort of the theme for the middle of the week, navigating the layers of the heart and looking at where we are self-protecting, where we are afraid to open, to receive, to express, to share. And then we move into the energy of this subtle but major collective shift of Uranus sextile Neptune. This is the first of 5 sextiles over the next 2 years. Uranus in Gemini is all about innovation and thought, communication and technology. Neptune deals with the psyche. It's all about visions of a new spiritual frontier, dissolving old identities, the dream of what could be, what this new world could look and feel like. And as they work together in this way, they begin to open new ways of connecting, imagining this collective vision. And sextiles are powerful, but they're more like an invitation. They're not a pressure aspect. They invite. And these next 2 years are about experimenting with ideas that bridge the mystical and the practical, the individual and the collective. You might gain insights this week around how you can integrate this new world into your daily life. I see Uranus in many ways as the vehicle or the sort of like the life force or the catalyst for the big outer planet shifts that we're navigating over the next 20 years. Uranus tells us how something is going to be completed. So this major shift in power with Pluto in Aquarius and Neptune in Aries. Uranus reveals how will that happen. And this is what we're seeing as far as money structures, as far as healthcare, as far as education. I believe we will start to see little glimpses into what we actually, on a personal and collective level, how this could actually work. And in many ways, we're seeing this in every industry. The old guard is dying. The old ways of doing things no longer apply in many ways. And this can be really, really disorienting, especially for the parts of us that, once again, want to stay safe or want to stay in the familiar, even if most of us, 99% of us, is ready for this next chapter. This is a time when we really need to tend to the parts of us that are still gripping to what they've always known, or gripping to perfection, or gripping to what's safe, what's secure, what's stable, what has always been. Because there are new ways being formed. We're seeing it in many different ways, these new ways of making money, of learning, of creating businesses, of living. And this is an experimentation. We might not know if these will work or if they are the right pathway, but it's just a time to sort of pay attention. And like I said, this is an outer transit, so it's going to be a long-term, slower moving transit, but it is impactful, and we'll start to see and feel the whispers of it this week. So just notice, maybe something comes across your table, maybe an opportunity, or someone mentions something they're working on, or a modality they're learning, or a new way of creating wealth, or a new way of communication, or a new way to travel. There's just, I feel like every single day there's a new thing popping up that challenges everything we've known. And that is fundamentally destabilizing. But the theme of now is, how do we stabilize when there's so much being destabilized all around us? How can we find our center when everything is changing? Because we know that destabilization is needed. We know that turbulence or the disturbance is essential right now. So how can we personally, individually, tend to the parts that need a little bit more reassurance or support? How can we lean into our practices and our rituals? This is where it gets simplified, because change is the only thing we can count on. This destabilization, this dissolving of what was, is inevitable. How can we find our truth within this space when so much is changing? How can we learn to work with these new technologies, or these new ways of doing things, or these new ways of being, without completely giving our power away, without allowing our survival systems to be activated? And what that requires is a reckoning with what has been and our relationship with the old structures. And this is where Pluto in Aquarius is really supporting us, but it is confronting. And as the world changes so rapidly, we internally have to be resourced enough to be with those changes, but also our relationships do as well. And I think a lot of relationships are being tested right now, and we need life rafts and boats for each and every one of us to support our own personal growth, but also the growth of our relationships too. So it comes back to, once again, what nourishes you? What supports you? What is your life raft during these unprecedented times, these paradigm shifts? We really have everything we need internally to navigate these times. We are built for these times. We just have to remember. And sometimes we need support in remembering. So thank you for being here. As always, thank you for your presence, for showing up. Thank you for sharing on social media. I'm going to leave you with the card for the week, but I first wanted to mention the red light box that I use, Loom Box, which I love. It's so helpful. This is one of my resources during this time because it really supports inflammation. I have a very sensitive system, and when I'm traveling or I'm navigating a lot of change or there's so much coming up to the surface, so much is being excavated and I'm having to process and be with it, these tools are just incredibly supportive for me. So starting my morning with red light with the Loom Box is so helpful. I have a great discount code for you. It's $260 off, I believe. So that is linked in the show notes. It's a great portable box. I love it. I travel with it. I've used other red lights, and this one just is the easiest to work with. And it's also really made well too. And I also have my friends at the Space Project who do spay and neuter for underserved areas, especially areas in the desert where there are a lot of dogs that are dumped and people are trying to take care of them, but they don't have the resources to. So if you are unaware, I'm a huge animal person. I have so much compassion and passion for supporting animals in this lifetime, and they're really struggling right now. They're carrying the weight of the density that we are processing through as humans on this planet, all of the mistakes we're making, all of the ways we're trying to figure this out, this great shift. And in many ways, the burden sort of falls on them. And specifically in the US, we have a shelter crisis. There are thousands and thousands of dogs in shelters kenneled with 5 other dogs in crazy heat right now. If you are looking for an animal companion, I please beg of you, do not buy a dog. Please look at your local shelter or your rescues. You can get literally any breed. You can get puppies. You can get golden retriever puppies and doodle puppies and bulldog puppies, and any type of breed you want, you can find through a rescue. And my friends at the Space Project right now are actually doing something incredible. They are going to these remote shelters in the desert that see temperatures of 118 in the summer, and they are delivering big blocks of ice. So in many cases, this is the only way that dogs can cool down, is to have this ice. And so for $5, you can buy a block of ice for a dog, and they're going to go deliver it. I rescued a dog from a desert shelter last summer, and when I got there, it was 118 degrees. There were 5 dogs to a kennel, no AC. And this is the reality of so many dogs in Los Angeles right now. So if you feel passionate about animals like I do, this is an incredible way to support a cause that is real and tangible. The money's going directly to the dogs. It's going directly to delivering this ice. They've actually been able to buy some big fans too for these underserved shelters. So if you're interested, I will link their Venmo. It's just Space Project on Venmo, and you can just donate directly to them. They're amazing people, incredibly honest. It's a rescue that I like to work with, and I just wanted to plug that because I'm incredibly passionate about their work. So the card I pulled for today is the Peacock card, and it is all about transmutation. And it says, Peacock lives in the woods where he consumes, among other things, poisonous plants. His ability to transmute vegetal toxins into extravagant, iridescent plumage makes him an alchemist of the highest order. Peacock has a reputation for vaingloriousness. He is boastful, exuberant in his beauty, and has the mastery required to back up his outrageous self-assurance. Peacock invites you to take in information or circumstances, both negative and positive, and alchemize them into a harmonized, energetic field that blesses your life. To do this is to master the art of transmutation, and it requires accepting your pain with as much love and gratitude as you do your happiness. When you do this, you begin to experience everything in life as happening for you rather than to you. Your travails become a gateway for greater freedom and beauty. With this application of loving awareness, everything is energy just waiting to be liberated into a more authentic expression of self. When it's balanced, you're assigning sacred purpose to the entirety of your life. When it's imbalanced, you feel immobilized by your perceptions of your circumstances. to bring into balance, dedicate time to serve others with full openness and acceptance, become available to the deeper awareness that is waiting to be revealed. And as always, thank you so much for being here. It helps me so much when you share episodes with friends and family, when you share on social media. It truly means the world to me. Thank you, as always, for your presence, for being here, for your dedication, and I will see you next week.